homesteaders, gardeners, and cooks. My name is Jennifer. Welcome to Miles Away Farm. Thanks for joining me in my kitchen. I am making a snack for lunch, and that is going to be a turkey carnitas tostada. And that's what this recipe is about. If you have ever cooked turkey legs in your regular Thanksgiving rotation, they are always dried out and really chewy, and then there's just a million little long pieces of bone and tendon in there that make them really hard to eat. Or if you've ever gone to a Renaissance fair or a county fair that had smoked turkey legs, they're really delicious, but they're also hard to eat for that same reason. This is how you solve that problem. We raise turkeys. We have some heritage breed turkeys that we raise every year. They take about 6 months to get big enough to be ready to butcher. So this is not a quick process. They're not like the regular white-breasted turkey that you find in the grocery store for Thanksgiving. And because they're birds that are actually active and they're out running around, there's not quite as much meat on them, but they are really delicious for Thanksgiving if you butcher them at about 6 months. But what we found is the legs are never super great. And so what we often do is we cook the turkey breast and often smoke that, and then we set aside the rest of the meat for other applications. And so this is a recipe for turkey leg carnitas, and it originally comes from Hank Shaw. And if you've been following me for any length of time, you know about Hank Shaw because I've mentioned him quite a bit. I absolutely love him. His primary focus is on wild game. And so this occurs in his cookbooks and on his blog when it's coming to catching wild turkeys or eating wild turkeys, but it works really good for domestic heritage breed turkeys as well. And so this is actually turkey legs that I set aside over a year ago, or just about a year ago, when we butchered turkeys for Thanksgiving last year. And I threw them in my freezer and kind of forgot they were in there, and I just discovered them. And you know, 'tis the season for all things turkey. And so I dug them out and decided to make this recipe. It's really easy, and I can't emphasize this enough. I've made this in an Instant Pot, and the actual hands-on cooking time, other than stripping the meat off the bone, is probably less than 10 minutes. So it's really delicious, it's really easy, and it's a great way to make turkey legs into something that you're going to look forward to eating rather than something that's just kind of an afterthought. So turkey leg carnitas, let's get started.
So these turkey legs look surprisingly good given the fact that they've been in a freezer bag for over a year. And the trickiest part here was I had one really big turkey that we had butchered, and figuring out how to get all of these into the Instant Pot so that they would lay relatively flat was a bit tricky, but we figured it out. It was a bit of a Tetris game. And then I need some onion. And everything in here is just going to be a rough chop. We're not going to bother with anything small. Also some garlic. And again, rough chop. When you're pressure cooking stuff, it's basically like doing a slow roast, and so you really don't need to cut things into small pieces because it's going to be in there for a good amount of time. And then I need 2 teaspoons of thyme. This is thyme from my own garden. And 2 teaspoons of oregano. And I'm using a Mexican oregano here, which is a different beast entirely from regular oregano. But if all you have is regular oregano, you can use that. A cinnamon stick. A 1/4 cup of brown sugar. Three bay leaves, and then I am using about 3 cups of chicken stock here. If you're converting a recipe from a regular recipe to an Instant Pot, add less liquid because nothing is going to evaporate off, and so your flavors are going to be a little bit more concentrated. And then 1 whole orange, just sliced thin. This is going to give it a really lovely citrus flavor. Hank actually has 2 recipes for this, and they're a little bit different from each other. I'm following the one that's on his blog, which is Hunter, Angler, Gardener, Cook. And so an hour in the Instant Pot, and we're finished. And normally, if this was just fresh turkey legs out of the grocery store, you would only do about a half an hour. But because these were farm raised and one of them was probably a 3-year-old bird, I wanted to make sure that this meat was super, super tender. We're gonna strain off this braising liquid and then cook it down in this little saute pan, and it's gonna become a bit of a sauce. And I ended up having quite a bit of this left over, and I used it for a pot of beans, so none of this went to waste. I did realize as I was tasting this, oh, I completely forgot to add salt to that. There was some salt in this chicken stock, but I didn't add any extra. And a little bit of fresh ground black pepper. And then once these have cooled off a little bit, I am just picking the meat off the bones. And you guys, look at how many tendons are in a turkey leg. It's just crazy. And if this was a commercial turkey leg, it would not be quite as dramatic as this. Because these are farm-raised birds, they're actually out walking around, flying up onto roosts and things. And so these tendons are going to be a little bit stronger and heavier duty than a 3-month-old bird from the grocery store. But this meat just falls right off the bone. It's absolutely beautiful. And this meat is so good. We ended up eating a lot of it on tostadas and tacos, but we ended up using the last of it just as a topping on a salad. So basically a turkey salad, and it was fantastic. I'm kind of just stirring this up, making sure I didn't miss any of those small tendons in there and breaking up the bigger chunks. Here's all of our leftover bones. So I've got a skillet on the stove with a couple tablespoons of oil. You can use lard here, that would be traditional. I think I just went with a regular vegetable oil. And then we're just making a couple of tostadas for dinner tonight, so I'm not gonna do this whole batch. But you're frying that already thoroughly cooked meat in a little bit of oil. I'm adding a bit of salt since I had forgotten the salt in the mix. And what you're trying to do here is get some browning. And so you want a little bit of crispiness and a little bit of browning on that meat, which is just gonna make it extra, extra delicious. These are ready-made tostadas, and I think it was an Ethan Chbosky video that I recently watched on YouTube where he went down the rabbit hole on tostadas, and I was like, why don't I ever do that? So I bought a pack of tostadas. And then I've cooked this sauce down quite a bit, but we're adding about 6 tablespoons of broth to this just to flavor it up a little bit. These are some homegrown pinto beans that I've canned and that have a bit of Mexican seasoning in them, and then I just mash them up with a potato masher so they make really great, easy, quick refries. And then on goes our beautiful fried up turkey carnitas. And then for toppings, whatever you like. I happen to have some sliced green onion and cilantro left over from some Asian stuff that I had done, some ramen, and so it made a nice topping for this. I'm adding, this is canned red cabbage that I did last year, pickled, and it's really delicious on tacos. A little bit of cotija, and then some beautiful, perfectly ripe avocado. When an avocado is perfectly ripe, you should be able to just peel the skin off the back. You don't have to scrape it out. And then this is homemade hot sauce from the last of our Sugar Rush peach peppers that were not quite ripe. And so I made kind of a green hot sauce with them on the stove and bottled it up. And it's really surprisingly delicious. And so a perfect topping for these tostadas. So there you have it. It's really easy, absolutely delicious. And we use the meat in a whole variety of dishes. So this probably fed us 6 or 7 meals. Give it a try, tribe. Thanks for watching. If you like this kind of content, leave me a comment, subscribe, give me a thumbs up, and share. I have new content coming out every week.